Yes, Sam.
I'm recording, honey.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, there we go.
Okay, you're recording?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate this. This is the first of a series of events that Jesse suggested called micro events, where we're trying to make sure not to expose people to danger or disease, but make sure that we're reaching out to people, we can answer their questions and talk to their concerns directly without just talking about things. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to talk about the platform, and then I will open myself up for any questions or concerns or comments that you have. So, my name is Jeremiah Liend. I was born in Bemidji and raised in Bemidji and Bagley. I'm a graduate of Bemidji High School in 1998. After graduating high school, I attended Bemidji State University, and then the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and finally, University of Wisconsin River Falls, where I got my Bachelor of Science in Theater Arts. Directly following that, I began my graduate program at Metropolitan State University. I had my master's in I studied theater, but also sustainability science, and that's a really big component of the belief system and the way that I try to improve the world. Sustainability, in brief, believes that we should learn to manage the resources of today without compromising the needs of the future. So to make sure that by our using water, we're not diminishing the cleanliness of it for future generations, to make sure that if we're harvesting trees, we're not depleting the ability of future generations to do so. And that applies to all things, not just the environment, but society and economy, to make sure that the systems that we have will last. And this campaign is sort of an experiment in that. It's an interdisciplinary intersection of sustainability and political science. We're trying to find ways that we can make our political systems work better for people, so that people want to be engaged with it, so it doesn't get so toxic, they don't want to have anything to do with it, so that they don't want to tune it out. And the way that we're trying to do that is to remain positive and engaged, and to provide policies that have a chance of helping people by improving lives and making things better, because that's really why I'm running. And I'm also running because of my kids, because I'm a parent and I want to see things improve. I want to see them have a world that isn't diminished and deteriorated because of our inaction. So my campaign begins with sustainability. That's the umbrella that I sort of apply over everything. We look at things, how are they going to impact the environment, how are they going to impact the society, and how are they going to impact the economy. And we balance those factors. We look at their impacts and how they're going to last in the long term and the short term, and we try to make things that work for people. So we talk about environmental projects like transitioning from a fossil economy to a renewable energy economy. We also have to understand that part of that is making sure that we're not just unemploying people that we have a plan to have them retrained and reestablished in careers that make sure that we're not leaving people out. And that sustainability really I hope to apply to a whole broad range of issues. You can look at any issue and try to establish what sort of impact it's going to have. My graduate program was applying it to theater, and now I'm trying to apply it to political science. Underneath that sort of umbrella of sustainability, and the biggest, most important thing that I want to achieve when I get into office is by trying to improve our government and our electoral process. Because I feel that right now it's under attack, that there are people who are trying to take voting rights away from people, to make it harder to vote, to make it less safe. From outside influence, from foreign actors, from corporations, from dark money that has infiltrated our politics and made it an entirely different game than previous times I've run for election. And so how do we do that? Well, we make sure that we protect voting measures that allow people to vote. So I'm opposed to voter ID requirements because Minnesota historically has one of the lowest fraud rates in the entire union and one of the highest participation rates. People in Minnesota want to vote, and they do it because it's easy, because they want to be involved, and without any absence of fraud, why would we make it more difficult for them? In 2016, 200,000 people in Wisconsin were unable to vote because of restrictive voter IDs laws. They unduly affect the poor, they unduly affect the elderly, they unduly affect people of color who do not have the ability to get a government issue ID. And it's essentially a poll tax, which is something that our Constitution forbids. We don't make you pay to vote. That is a principle that we have. And voter ID requirements are more or less a fly in the face of that. I think we need to remove money from politics. I think that we can do that through publicly funded elections by saying, if you're willing to run for office, then here's your budget, and this is what you have to spend, and everybody gets the same amount. And the time that you spend getting elected is reaching out to people and convincing them to vote for you. It isn't reaching out to people and begging them for money. It's not reaching out to corporations and telling them that you're going to put their interests above the interests of their constituents as long as you give me money so that I can pay. It's a way to work around Citizens United, which made corporations people and money speech. Because right now, dissolving Citizens United is a much harder roadblock than reforming the entire way that we try to hold our electoral process. And finally, I am deeply committed to and enthusiastic about ranked choice voting, which I believe is necessary to break the duopoly that we're currently experiencing. Partisanship was bad post 9/11, and currently it's been weaponized. Like, we have been turned against one another to such a degree that we're unwilling to listen to each other. We can no longer find a common ground. And that isn't just internal, that's external too. Outside actors have weaponized partisanship. They have misinformed, they have disinformed, and they've made people attack each other when we should be trying to come together and try to solve some of these problems. So ranked choice voting allows a greater spectrum of representation in our political system. It means that third-party candidates can run without the fear of being called spoilers, without people saying they're throwing their vote away. Because you can vote for the candidate that you want, and in the event that things come down to a tie, then the next person you voted for will be accepted. Particularly this year, where we saw the Super Tuesday issue, where several candidates withdrew in advance of the primary and had their votes discarded. In a ranked choice voting system, those votes would have gone to the next eligible candidate, and those people would have had their votes recognized. So I believe ranked choice voting needs to be deployed statewide and eventually nationwide, so that the whole nation can start to break the duopoly and increase the spectrum of representation in our government. All of the countries of the developed world have multiple parties that represent multiple different views, and in America, the consolidation of power has resulted in two big powers just butting heads with one another. And I got the DFL endorsement because chiefly I agree with the platform. I agree with the DFL platform 100%. They have great ideas, and I hope to see them resolved. The thing is, I like the GOP platform too, probably 90% of it. The thing is, with politics, it's a two-part system. The first part is we elect people that we think will represent us, and the second part is we have to hold them accountable for the things that they say that they're going to do when they don't do them or when they act against them. And in America, we're really great at that second part. We love electing those candidates with hope in our heart and getting them into office, but it's hard to follow up with them. It's hard to keep track of the systems that are going on that govern us and judge our lives. But it's so necessary, I think, and that's sort of my hope for all of you, is that it's not just getting me into the office. I need all of your help after I'm in office to make these things happen. Because I can't do it alone. I can't get elected alone, and I can't do all this alone. I'm your representative, and I'll need your help throughout that entire process to make these things happen. And then the final component of our platform is legal reforms that hope to create a more sustainable system of justice for people. And that begins with greater access to assistance for people with chemical dependency and mental health issues. One of the really frustrating things I see whenever there's an awful incident, a shooting or an act of violence, or all these people who come out and say, well, we need better access to mental health services and chemical dependency services. And we say, well, we should do that. And then it never happens. And people don't want to remain addicted to drugs for their lives. People don't want to be dependent on a chemical to deal with the trauma in their lives. People don't want to struggle with mental health in silence. They want to be able to reach out. And it takes such bravery to make that step, to reach out, to try and get help. And we need to do our part to make sure that when somebody finds that bravery to better themselves, that they get help. The next thing in terms of that is trying to legalize cannabis recreationally statewide for a number of reasons. Several states throughout the union have already done so quite successfully. we've seen time and time again where the nightmare stories where it's going to increase crime and it's going to increase use and it's going to cause traffic accidents have not worked. The fact of the matter is, Minnesota already has 2 million recreational cannabis users in the state right now. And they are getting their product from the black market and paying exactly $0 in taxes for that. They are getting unregulated products that could be dangerous for them. And we are spending millions, billions of dollars prosecuting people for having a plant that if they were in a different state would not be illegal. So I believe we need to legalize it. We need to do it responsibly. We need to regulate it to make sure that people are getting safe products, and we need to make sure that the tax dollars that are being accrued from that are used in a responsible way. And one of the most important ways I think for that is to make sure that people have access to health insurance. That is an issue that is sort of the blanket of all of this election season. I lost my health insurance about a month into this campaign. My employer, during the enrollment period, I shouldn't say my employer, the company that my employer uses for insurance quadrupled my premium rates right at the beginning of a pandemic, and I could not afford it. I am thankful and lucky that my family still has insurance, but I also know that at any moment it could be taken away, and that we would just be left to our own devices. I know so many people in my life, including my partner, who suffer from pre-existing conditions. The ACA is not a very functional piece of legislation, but I thank it so much that it does not allow people to be refused for pre-existing conditions, because it means that the people I love with those conditions can get treatment and be insured. I want to figure out how to insure every Minnesotan. The framework that I would like to do for it is Minnesota Care, which is every resident of Minnesota will be offered insurance. Maybe it won't be bells and whistles. Maybe you won't be able to get plastic surgery with it. But if you need health care, if you need to go to the emergency room, if you have a condition that needs to be treated, I believe that we owe it to the people of our state to provide for that. And I've been on Minnesota Care before. I know people who have been on Minnesota Care, so I'm familiar with the program, and I believe that an expansion, in particular, funded perhaps by cannabis, a cannabis tax, would ensure that nobody has to be afraid of this anymore. That people don't have to be afraid of getting so sick that they bankrupt themselves and die, leaving their family drowning in debt. Because the nation promised that everybody would have an equal share of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But without health insurance, I don't see how you can live functionally. I don't understand how somebody can be expected to go through their life without insurance, paying out of pocket for the things that they need. So these are all things that I think are important and that I want to work with the legislature to accomplish. I want to get their dreams beyond these policies to try to really help this district address some of the problems that have been here since I was a child and that have gone unchecked. The Beltrami and Clearwater County and Monoman County compete for the poorest counties in our entire state. And the reason they do that is because these counties are trapped in an economic depression for a number of reasons. You can't point to any one thing to say why are so many poor people and homeless people in Bemidji, because it's a variety of factors. There's so many things. But we need good jobs in this area. We need jobs that don't just give you a paycheck. We need jobs that give you insurance, that give you a retirement plan, that provide you with some security at the end of the road plan for what you're going to do for retirement. We need better services to help our homeless population find the treatment and services that they need. Because right now, they are struggling. And what's happening is we're seeing private citizens come to the aid of people who are being left out by the system, when the system should be helping them. And there are so many other issues facing our region, and I honestly believe that my education and my training and everything would be a real valuable asset in trying to solve these problems. I wouldn't be running if I thought that these were all pie-in-the-sky fantasies that I never thought I would accomplish. I think that by doing the work, by doing the research, by listening to people, by building bridges and making relationships, and showing people that what we're doing will directly improve lives that we can accomplish these things. And I need your help to do it. So, that's my spiel. I think I lost something in social justice. Thank you. So questions, comments, concerns?
What's your position on line 3?
So this is a point of departure that I will likely have with the party on it. My policy with line 3 is to remove it. For a number of reasons. One of them was a day this year where a barrel of oil cost $1. So a barrel of crude, because of a game of chicken between Saudi Arabia and Russia, it happened that at one point a barrel of oil cost $1 this year, okay? The same price of a barrel of oil is a bottle of water at that point, right? You go into any grocery store to buy a bottle of water, you're gonna find $1. Tar sands oil are the dirtiest oil on our planet. And every barrel of oil you make consumes up to 5 barrels of water. And an important distinction there is it consumes water. It doesn't use water. Water use is like it comes out of the tap, we drink some of it, it goes back in, it goes into the system, it's purified, and we get to use it again. Water that is consumed is destroyed forever. We never get that water back. It is going to be toxic waste forever. So tar sands oil consumes up to 5 barrels of water for every 1 barrel of oil, okay? So that means for every $1 barrel of oil we were producing, we were destroying $1,500 worth of water forever. And at the production goals of the Enbridge pipeline of 3 million barrels a day, that means that on that day, if that production goal was met, we destroyed $4.5 billion worth of water to create $3 million worth of oil. So when you talk about the party of fiscal responsibility, I fail to see how that is economically responsible, how it is environmentally responsible, or how it is socially responsible to waste our resources so that a select few people can get rich off of polluting our environment.
Here, here.
So I have a challenge for Enbridge for their Line 3 project. And so I say remove it. Remove it and let's stop relying on a fossil fuel economy. Let's start the transition now. But if they want me to consider them replacing that line, then there is 10,000 barrels of crude oil resting on our water table in Wilton. And if they can figure out how to get that out of the ground and restore that land to what it was before they ruined it in 1979, then I will think about them being allowed to replace that. But currently, I also want to mention Charles Dolson has a fantastic set of rules for oil development. And I really respect his opinion on the matter and would love to incorporate his ideas on how to mitigate and responsibly develop those pipelines. So, does that answer your question?
Well, I know your position now.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's probably going to come up.
I'd like you to include, when you answer that, your source for the
Information.
5 gallons of
Sure.
water to
Yep.
1 gallon of oil, because that
Yep.
gives legitimacy, according to the Institute for...
So I'll, as a primary source, I will say that my partner is a graduate of Yale University with a degree in environmental management and a focus on water management. But I can definitely find you the specific site source that she uses in her.
When you do that, according to the Institute of...
Yep. Yeah. That's good.
And
good
that
note.
gives legitimacy.
Yeah.
But
Thank
not only that, but I think the thing is, if we kept to focus, forget Trump, if we kept to focus on improving with the vehicles we've got, improving the efficiency of the vehicles instead of backing it up, improving the efficiency, trying to invest more in these electric stations around so when people get these cars, they know they're not going to be in the middle of nowhere and all of a sudden I can't charge my car. I mean, there are things we could do to further decrease the dependence on oil.
Yeah, we need a comprehensive transition. It can't just be suddenly, okay, everybody buy an electric car. It has to be phased, and it has to be comprehensive, and it has to be integrated. Every day I work during the work week for Complete Solar, I put solar panels on people's houses. My job is at the end of the process. I'm actually the one who gets permission to turn the thing on and start producing energy. And the thing that I envision every day that I do it is a trainload of coal. Okay? Coal-fired plants are primarily how the United States produces their power. And every day, millions of pounds of CO2 are put in the air. Mercury is dissipated into our environment, and we all get to breathe that too. 50,000 people a year, I believe, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, die of pollution. So it's not like this intangible, oh, let's wait for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I picture that trainload of car, and what I try to do is interconnect enough systems so that trainload of cars sits in the station tomorrow. Because it doesn't happen in the future. When those solar systems get turned on, that is one less coal car that they need to burn that next day. And it is a battle. It is a battle eliminating those coal cars, but it is a battle that I believe we are winning, because every system we put up has a lifespan of 20 years, and there's only so much coal in the ground before they're going to run out. So, So when considering all of that, I see a pathway forward to a clean energy economy, and it is complex, certainly, and it needs to be comprehensive. Yeah.
So how do you address the concerns of Minnesotans who say, gosh, we have, winter 6 months of the year. How do solar and wind and alternative energies work in our state?
That is an excellent question. Thank you, young lady.
You're welcome. Young.
She's got her cards and she throws
There is actually a really critical and interesting development. So that is the argument. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. Okay, all of that is true. But the sun does shine pretty predictably, and the wind blows pretty often. And the technology that we have available now to store energy is being developed at a really amazing pace. And particularly with the development of something called compressed air energy storage, we now have a means of providing energy between those production periods. So compressed air energy storage is typically used in a large industrial manner. And what happens is during overproduction periods. So any solar system is likely to overproduce for your use. If you're using 1 kilowatt and it's producing 5 kilowatts, those 4 kilowatts are being pushed back into the grid. It's going down to your neighbor, and your electric company is charging them just the same, but it doesn't matter because you are not getting charged for it. But there are also these compressed air energy storage systems, which use either a salt cave that they can compress, or a tank that can be compressed using water as ballast. And during overproduction periods, when all of the windmills are blowing and the sun is shining and all of our hydro plants are producing, we compress that air. And at night, when the sun has gone down and the wind is no longer blowing, we are able to then take that energy back up, put it through a transformer station, and provide energy for everybody in that interim, in that gap between those production periods. So I understand that argument that exists, but people need to be aware that there's also technology catching up to that demand, that there are solutions to make sure that our renewable resources are being used effectively. Welcome!
Hey, Jeremiah.
Do you have any questions? You missed my stump speech.
No, we're just here to support you, man.
Awesome. Yes.
I go to these indivisible meetings, and we had a invite out to the Beltrami Electric to come and talk to us about their big plant out in North Dakota, and how they're getting $50 trillion or something to do carbon capture.
Okay.
And there were some homeowners that were talking about putting solar panels on their houses, but we never got into the conversation of why. They were getting, I can't remember the amount, it was a huge amount of money they were borrowing, and they were getting it from the federal government for like 2%. And they didn't have to start paying it back for 50 years or some crazy thing. And I'm in this room with people who are like-minded, and everybody bought it, at least outwardly. And I'm sitting there going, no, this isn't true. And why can't we give that $50 million to homeowners like me who can't afford the $27,000 investment to get this stuff on my house
Yep.
because you know
Yep.
I won't live long enough to pay it off.
Right.
And yet we can give them this a huge amount of money for digging a hole and pumping the carbon back into it.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So I don't know how we get the public to buy this.
But
idea.
I was in the same meeting, and the thing that concerned me, because I've been on their tour twice to North Dakota.
Okay.
And, you know, their insistence was, because I brought up, you know, I'm really concerned because the coal that they dig is not very far in the ground. It's the dirtiest coal there is. So it's a horrible polluter. And so I asked them that question. Number one, they don't encourage people to do it, have one of those wind machines or a solar on your own house. They want you, when it comes to
Right.
solar, they want you to buy into what they got in town there.
Right.
And in fact, it sounds to me like with a little digging, you're almost punished if you get something at home rather than buying into whatever they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
But it's my understanding that they've got a contract with that coal company for, I think it's still got 20 some years or something, some ridiculous amount. And so
But
they got
it's-
us by the gotchas.
The question I have is how do we get some money
Yep. That is an excellent
Uh-huh.
question.
to
So
the local person,
Right.
the
So
individual?
California has figured it out.
Okay. Good.
No, they don't have it entirely figured out, but they have a lot of stuff figured out. And the thing that I find a lot in the solar industry is not pushing for the environmental factors, it's the economic factors, because people don't want to pay a huge electric bill every month, right?
Right.
So what is in California and what we should have in Minnesota are corporations or nonprofits that are willing to financially back solar projects. What we have a number of different financing models within our company, but one of the most popular is a PPA, a power purchase agreement. And that is an agreement between a homeowner and our company where the company that's financing their solar system will take their excess power and sell it on the market, okay? So the owner is having their electric bill reduced, the company is selling that excess power, and at a certain point between that combination, the system pays for itself, and then the owner is given the option, typically of leasing it and buying it. But they technically don't own the solar system, which is actually beneficial for them in terms of warranting and repair and what have you. They're just there to get the power off of it. The company really is using their roof. You know, rather than creating a giant field somewhere where nobody is going to be maintaining their panels, they have to wash them all, they're putting them on houses. And with that model, the average system that we sell pays for itself in 5 years. Warranty for 10, lifespan of supposedly 20. And it allows the amazing thing about it is that these are not rich people buying these systems. These are people of modest means. But because of this financing structure, they aren't out that money. They aren't out the money to pay for that giant system because it's technically owned by a different party. So in short, we need to be more creative about how we finance these things and how we're providing those to the consumers. Because if they were free, I think everybody would put solar panels on their house. Why would you not?
Why would you not?
If you had a means of producing energy in a clean, reliable manner and lowering your electric bill, everybody would do that. But the thing that we're butting up against are fossil fuel industries who are actively opposing measures that make that process easier, that make it easier for the consumer to be able to finance those products. And that right there is exactly the battle. Is how do we make it easier for people to live cleaner lives? And I believe that there are ways to do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Will that be like something that's going to get addressed with this lawsuit Ellison filed?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Against the different fossil fuel companies about the just misleading of the markets?
Oh,
Right,
Ellison, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure where
Yeah, I
the
don't
funds
know.
from that suit may be committed.
Okay.
I would hope that they would go into renewable energy. That would make
Yeah,
sense.
because you'd imagine if that's,
Wasn't that with Exxon or I
Yeah.
can't
I
remember.
think
There's
it was
Yeah.
I think it was 3 different outfits
Okay.
that are involved in the suit.
Oil companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I'm not. I would like to familiarize myself. I saw those measures. I'm not sure where those funds have been committed. Thanks for coming, Charles. Hey, Charles. Good to see you. Okay. Any more questions or comments or concerns? Okay. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Well,